Okay, thank you very much for that kind introduction, and I want to thank the organizers for inviting me to be present here, and in particular, my long-ago biology teacher, Liletta Selassie. Thank you so much for bringing me here. It's a real privilege and pleasure to be here. Now, let's see if I can you hear me? Okay, good. And do we have the first slide? We do. Marvelous. Okay, I suppose the first question is, what do I know anyhow? I don't work within the organization of the International Baccalaureate. I'm a professor at Uppsala University, where I teach zoology and I do research in the evolution of vertebrates, but I'm not actually involved with admissions policy or anything like that. However, I suppose my qualifications for what they are firstly, that I once upon a time actually did the IB. That's me. At the International School of London, as I referred to from 1981. We had some very glamorous teachers in those days too. Yes, you recognize yourself. Since 2004, I've been a professor at Uppsala University in Sweden. And what's also of some relevance, my daughter, Anna, there she is currently reading her pre-IB year at Katedralskolan in Uppsala, the oldest school in Sweden, as it happens, recorded in 1243. We're not quite sure when it was founded, but suffice it to say that she will be starting her diploma next year. Worth mentioning at this point that in Sweden, you can study the IB diploma in a state school as an alternative to the normal Swedish high school qualifications. As part of the state system, but it's at present only the actual diploma program that is offered. All right, so I thought I would tell you a little bit, actually as a preliminary to that, because you might want me to say a few words, I suppose, about my experience with the IB itself. I would really just very much like to echo what the previous speakers have said so far. It's a wonderful education. I've never for a moment regretted taking it, and it's stood me in very good stead through the whole of my academic and professional career. In particular, I would say the internationalist aspects of it and the breadth of perspective you get and the way your ability for independent thought is trained up. All of that has stood me in very good stead. So you know, all of you students who are here, if ever you're wondering how I really chosen the right thing to do, yes, of course you have. This is a marvelous program. You've made a good choice and you're fortunate to be involved with it. But if we now move on from that to the question of how does the IB relate to the Swedish university system, if you're considering going into Swedish university, well, here there are some challenges, and we might as well be realistic and look at what they are. As you will appreciate, Swedish universities are primarily attuned to the national high school system, so let's have a look at that. And firstly, a bit of linguistic confusion. The national high school system in Sweden is known as the gymnasium. This is, of course, nothing to do with naked athletes running around, so don't get yourselves worried. It's just another of those little odd loans from Greek that pop up in all other European languages. This is simply our term for high schools in general. Okay, the Swedish high school programs, essentially, there are any number of vocational programs. It's important to understand that Swedish education, already at the high school level and certainly at the university level, has a rather vocational sort of slant to it. But in addition to the more obvious kind of vocational programs, we have some at least broadly academic programs, essentially as follows. Now, all students, irrespective of program, even if you're studying to be a hairdresser, will take initially this range of subjects. These, however, at a relatively low level. If we look at the natural sciences program, as an example of how things work, you will start out with these joint courses. There will then be some program-specific courses that everybody has to take, and finally, and this is a 3-year package in total, you will then focus in on some particular profile. There are 2 profiles within the natural sciences program. You will note already, and here is one of the problems we encounter, that in the final year in the natural sciences program, you are expected to read biology, physics, and chemistry. So we have a little bit of a mismatch here with the way that the IB is structured, unfortunately. Standards. This is a sensitive one, and if there were representatives here of the Swedish educational establishment might have eggs thrown at me at this point. But look, everybody knows. It's never acknowledged officially anywhere, but everybody knows that the IB maintains a very much higher academic standard and is much more difficult than the Swedish gymnasium qualifications in academic subjects such as natural sciences. And my daughter's personal experience, after all, she's kind of in the run-up to the IB, and she has contemporaries and friends both who studied the IB and the Swedish system, or indeed have switched between the two, very much bears this out. Unfortunately, however, this is not officially recognized, and it causes certain problems, as we'll see in a moment. All right, so university entry. If you're going to enter into a Swedish university, and by the way, there's a bit of an interesting point of comparison here with the Dutch situation. All Swedish universities offer a broad range of vocational courses. There are universities that really focus entirely on that, but even a place like Uppsala, which is a serious academic university, of course you can read, biology or philosophy or something like that, but they also have a wide range of much more applied, much more vocationally focused programs. General requirements for entry to any Swedish university in terms of, and here is, whoops, sorry, back one, come back. Here is a bit of an immediate issue. You are required, hold on, wrong button again. Could I have that back, please? Not quite sure what to do about this. Some technical assistance. Marvelous. Blank screen, much better. Oh, there we are. Lovely. Right. You need to have either Swedish or Danish or Norwegian. Now, I don't suppose those are really very helpful alternatives for you here. All Swedish university courses, without exception, have a first year that is taught entirely in Swedish. In later years, English comes in increasingly. We therefore have quite a lot of international exchange students as second and third year undergraduates, but very few foreign students who come in right from the beginning. You also need to have done maths. Here, there's not too much of an issue. I've written here any of the IB maths courses. That, of course, depends on what you're wanting to study. You're not going to get into physics if you've got maths studies, but maths studies is considered appropriate in some of the humanities areas. So there isn't too much of a mismatch there. Then there will be specific requirements for particular university courses. A minimum grade of 4 is expected, except physics, chemistry, and biology, higher level, where the minimum is 3. Now that's all straightforward enough. These are absolutes. You need to have this. If you haven't got it, then you can't get in. But on the other hand, no particular grades or particularly high grades are required. However, although you can see here that there are issues here with specific requirements for some university courses, which might need you to take additional fill-in courses to complement what you have. However, the rest of the process is a rather bafflingly complex point system. Just like you heard about Ireland, entry is entirely on an aggregate points system, and these points requirements will vary from program to program within one university. So there's no kind of general, how hard is it to get into Uppsala University? It depends entirely on what you're wanting to study. We have a basic sort of spine scale here, with, however, various add-ons. You will note that the top ends of the scales are judged to be equivalent. You will already suspect from what I said a moment ago that that's not really a fair equation. It is really rather a lot easier to get top marks in the Swedish system than in the IB. Here are some examples of points required for entry to programs at Uppsala last year. Different styles of entry depending on whether or not you needed complementary qualifications. But a thing to note here really is the total score varies greatly. You will also see that in medicine, this is apparently above maximum. The scale only runs up to 20. So what's the deal here? Well, there are additional merit points that you can gain. For example, in IB terms, if you have modern language, it can get you up to 1.5 points. Language ab initio, another half point. English, higher level or subsidiary, 1 point. Maths up to 1.5 points. However, you can play around with this as you wish, but you're only allowed a maximum of 2.5 extra points. Okay? There are some additional points that can be obtained from obligatory supplementary courses, for example, in Swedish. Nevertheless, as you can easily see, it would be a struggle for even an excellent IB student to get into some of the most popular programs like, say, medicine at Uppsala. it is, in fact, considerably easier for an IB student to get into a US Ivy League university, or let's say into Cambridge, for example, than to get into Uppsala to study medicine. And of course, this is an outrage. This is not a fair equation of standards at all. And to be fair, there is some considerable awareness of that within Sweden. Questions have been asked about this in Parliament. So it's not like this is being ignored, but at the moment, the Department of Higher Education is kind of stonewalling, and so we are where we are. To conclude very rapidly, an IB student applying to Swedish university for bachelor level studies are likely to need to complement the qualifications, certainly in Swedish, unless you happen to already be studying Swedish. If all you could put up your hands, all the people who are studying Swedish here. Right, no, okay. Well, the points conversion scale is not very fair. However, of course, you will have seen that the points required to get into different programs varies greatly. So it's not like Swedish universities are out of reach, full stop. Some courses are more, or some programs are more realistic to get onto than others. But it's always a little bit uphill compared to people who are within the national program. But of course, having said that, if you do get in, you will find yourself with a substantial advantage relative to your classmates with a Swedish gymnasium background, because the fact of the matter is that you have received a very much better education. You're very much better prepared for the rest of life. And I think, in fullness, whether you go to a Swedish university or not, none of you ever regret having studied the International Baccalaureate. Thank you very much.